Hi there, I'm Michelle the Painter from Berkshire Paint and Sip, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. Alright, so today I'm going to be painting Chickadee on Sneakers, and I'm sipping on some orange spiced tea. And if you enjoy this process, I do hope that you like and subscribe to my channel, and that you also check out my Patreon page where you're going to find additional painting perks. So let's get painting and let's get sipping. Alright, so for my materials today, I'm going to be using a stretched and primed 16 by 20 inch canvas. If you're painting along with me, you can certainly switch up the size, but that's what I'll be using. I'm going to be using acrylic paint today. My colors are titanium white, cobalt blue, burnt umber, which I like to call brown, Mars black, chrome orange, and chrome yellow. And of course you can switch up those colors if you'd like, but that's what I'll be using. For my tools today, I have a white piece of chalk that I'm going to be using for some drawing, and then I have 3 brushes. I have let me get them in order here, a 1/2 inch wide flat bristle brush, a number 6 round synthetic brush, and a number 2 round synthetic brush. And I will refer to these as small, medium, and large as we go through the painting process. Of course, you can switch those up if you'd like. If you're painting along with me, you'll probably want to have a cup of water for washing your brushes, as well as a paper towel for drying your brushes. And down below this video, in the video description, I will be providing you with a couple of additional resources that can help you throughout your painting process. One of them is a link where you can purchase the same exact paint kit that I'm using, from the same size canvas to the same type of paints and brushes and all the good stuff in between. So that's there. There's also a link where you can download a free image of the final painting. So you can print that and use it as visual reference as you go through the painting process. And there's also written step-by-step instructions down there for you as well. And that's all we're going to need today. Alright, so what we're going to do for the first step is we're going to be painting our sky. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors I'm using are blue and white. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my sky nice and dark up at the top, and I'm going to have it fade down to a lighter shade of blue down at the bottom. So I am going to pre-mix myself a little bit lighter shade of my cobalt blue. So I've already pre-mixed it here so you can see where I'm headed. All I did was I added a little bit of white paint into my cobalt blue. You can make this really as light or as dark as you want. I'm just going for a nice kind of medium shade of blue, so that way it resembles a nice, wonderful summer clear sky, sunny sky. So this is about where I'm headed. Of course, you can make yours into whatever shade you want. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start up at the top of my canvas with this custom blue that I created. And I'm just using a left to right type of brush stroke. You could certainly use any kind of brush stroke that you want. Whatever you do decide to use, though, I recommend that you use it consistently throughout the entire canvas, so that way it looks like a nice cohesive kind of background. If you start going left to right, I would recommend staying left to right through the whole thing. If you want to do dots so it looks more impressionistic, you can certainly do that. Just do it through the whole thing. And then once I come about halfway down my canvas, I'm going to start picking up white paint with my custom blue. So I have about half and half on my brush right now. So what I'm starting the process of is a gradient on the background. So this way I've got that darker blue that's going to fade into a lighter blue down at the bottom. And because I used both colors, the blue plus white on my brush in this midsection, this is going to start my transition from dark to light. So it's a nice simple way to get a believable gradient, or an easy to follow kind of gradient. Now, without washing my brush, I'm going to pick up my white paint. So because I didn't wash my brush, I'm in essence kind of getting another shade lighter of my blue, because I had the blue that was on my brush and I'm mixing it with white. So this gives me kind of the next lightest shade down as I go down towards the bottom. And now I'm just going to continue to pick up white as I work my way down towards the bottom. And this is going to get it to be nice and light as I'm finishing up the bottom of my canvas. And once I've got it all covered, then I'll just kind of quickly go back and forth over the paint so I can get it to really blend in nicely. You can even kind of do this diagonal type of thing just to get them to blend in together, and then just go back and forth left to right. You could use a bigger brush also in this process if you really wanted to have a nice soft gradient. Sometimes the larger brushes will help you to get these colors to blend a little bit better with one another. And you could also do a second coat too. So if you get done doing this and it's dried and you say, I would like my blend to be a little bit softer looking, you could always do a second coat on it. And then once you've got this done, we are going to be using our piece of chalk for the next step. So you can put this large brush away, take out your piece of chalk. Of course, I'm just going to keep blending and blending and take out your piece of chalk and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to draw an outline for our sneakers, our bird, and our telephone wires. I'm going to be using my chalk. I do recommend before you start this step that you make sure that your canvas is dry. So this is that time where you get to take an extra long break if you'd like to. Or you can find some kind of fun fanning method to get it dry, or you can do as I did and just pull out a blow dryer and get it dry that way. So I'm going to be guiding you through a series of markers, and we're just going to connect those markers in order to get some nice basic shapes. We're not going for any fine-tuned detail here. We just need some shapes in order to paint in during the painting process. So I'm going to start with my sneakers, so that way we can kind of build stuff around them. I'm going to have them appearing as if they're in the air, so we're going to be almost looking at them from the side and underneath. So we're going to be starting with a really long sole or bottom to the foot, and I'm going to start with the top one first. So I'm going to find myself left to right center of my canvas, and then up and down center of my canvas, which for me is right about here. I'm going to go over to the right, maybe about 1.5 inches, and up about 1/4 inch. That's where I'm going to have my first marker. The next marker that I'm going to do is over here. So where this is, I'm about maybe 6 inches away from the top. If this is about halfway up or down, I'm almost 1/4 of the way. This is 1/4 way, so a little bit below that. And then in maybe about 1.5 inches. This is going to represent the front of the sole and the back of the sole. So I'm going to connect it with a really long oval type of a shape that's more narrow in like where the arch of the foot is. It'll also be more narrow back in the heel and a little bit wider at the foot or the front of the foot. So here we go. I'm going to start right here. I'm going to just kind of bring it up a little bit, dip it down a little bit, and then bring it back up around in a curve like this. And then I'm going to go ahead and bring it back a little bit narrow in through here. This is no more than maybe about 1 inch wide in that narrow spot. And then I'm just going to bring it back up and around here. I'm going to do the sole of the other foot next, and then we'll kind of build off of that. So the sole of the other one is this other sneaker is on the far side. It's a little bit farther away from us distance wise, so it's going to be a little bit smaller. This one's going to be on our side of the telephone wire, and this one's going to be on the other side. So this one's going to be a little bit shorter. My length of this foot is about 9 inches. This one's going to be about 8 inches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down from the point of this toe about halfway between here and the bottom of my canvas. So somewhere about here. And I'm going to go over to the right, maybe about 1 inch. So somewhere in this vicinity is going to be the back side of the heel. The sneakers are going in the opposite direction, not to confuse anything more than it already is. And then I'm going to stay at the same height as this one. I'm going to come over to here. So this is, if you travel straight up from here, I'm a little bit in from here, or I'm maybe about 4, maybe 3 inches in from the edge of my canvas. So somewhere about here. And I'm going to connect these two again with a similar thought process that the front of the shoe is going to be a little bit wider, the arch of the foot is going to be narrow, and then the heel will be a little bit wider. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to give myself a little bit of a curve, bring it up in through here, wrap it around this toe area, come back down in through here. Again, at the most narrow part, this one's even a little bit more narrow than the one up top. And yours don't have to be at exactly the same angle as mine. This is just something that, an angle that I thought was going to be nice and realistic. Now I'm going to put the next part of this shoe, which is kind of like the rubber siding to it. So I'm going to just kind of come up from both of these edges and then just follow along the profile that I have for the sole. So I'm going to come up from here, maybe about a half of an inch to an inch, and then give myself the side of the sneaker in like that. I'm going to do the same thing for this one. So I'm going to come up from the edge of the sneaker in through here, bring it up, and then just kind of ride this along, give myself the edge of the sole or the rubber part of the side. So these are kind of high top Converse style type of sneakers, and they're old and they're raggedy and they're wrinkled. So I'm going to just kind of give myself information where the opening of the ankle part is going to be. I'm going to have this one is going to be right about here, so a little bit in from here and maybe about an inch down, and then I'm going to connect here to the back of my shoe, somewhere in through here like this, and just give it kind of like a ripply edge like that. I'm going to connect here to here with a little bit of a dip and a ripply edge, and then I'll connect here to right about here. This is going to be the top side of the front of the shoe, so something like this, and just a little ripply edge like that. I'm going to do similar motion in through here, so I'm going to find where I want the ankle part to go. So I'm going to have mine right about here and here. So this again is maybe in from here about an inch, and then I'm almost like 2 inches up away. This one's going to be a little less of an angle than this one. And then I'll connect here to the back of my shoe. So again, just kind of a ripply type of edge. This is going to represent where the back side of the shoe, and this is the front side of the shoe. Oh, let me connect these two first. This is going to be the top, the opening of the shoe, and then this one will be the front where the laces go, and then this will be the top side of the shoe and through there. So then what I'm going to do is that's all I'm going to do for my sneakers. I'm going to draw myself an outline for a bird. I'm going to use the shape of an egg for its body. I'm going to have it sitting on the edge of the shoe in through here, and I want it to be kind of sitting back a little bit, so I don't need to do any feet or anything like that. I'm just going to give myself the shape of an egg in through here. I'm going to kind of skip a little piece right in through there because I want it to look like it's behind the shoe. I'm going to give myself a circle for the head, so this is going to be right in through here is going to be my circle. So my bird is no higher than the top of my shoe. I have a little tiny beak coming off there. I need to connect my front part of my neck. So really I just kind of give myself a little bit of a curved line in through there so it's not a total circle anymore. I'm going to connect the top of this circle to the back of here with a little bit of a curved line like that. And then I'm going to give myself a little tail. So I'm going to bring this and give myself this little kind of pointy little tail coming out like that. That's all I'm going to do for the shape of my bird. Now I'm just going to do 3 telephone wires. So on the left hand side I'll make myself 3 marks that are about a half of an inch to a quarter of an inch apart from each other. And then on the right hand side I'm going to make 3 more marks. The top one is going to be maybe a quarter of an inch away from the top of the canvas. Then I'm going to come down maybe about 2.5 inches for my next one, and maybe about 5.5 inches for the next one. I'm going to connect 3 to 3, but I'm going to connect this top one to this bottom one. So I'm just going to make myself a line that's going to connect these two. I'm going to connect my second one is going to connect up to this top one in through here. So something like this, and then I'll connect my last 2 like this. And that is all I'm going to be doing for my outline. You can make any adjustments that you want. We're going to be using our medium brush for the next step, so you can just get ready. Alright, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint the base coat of our sneakers, our bird, and our wires. I'm going to be using my medium brush. The colors I'm using are black, brown, and white. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-mix myself a light gray color that I'll be using as my base coat for the rubber sole part of the shoes in through here and my bird, and then I'll be using black for the canvas of the sneakers, the sole of the sneakers, and the wires. So I'm going to start with my gray color first. I have pre-mixed it so you can see where I'm headed. How I got there was I used white plus a little bit of black and a little bit of brown. And then I just mix them together. That's clearly too dark for me, so I'll put in a little bit more white to counteract that. And I'm just going for a nice neutral kind of light grayish tan color that will help me to have a nice base coat for the white part of the sneakers and the bright part of the bird. So that's looking pretty good to me in through there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that color to color in the this section of my sneakers. And when I'm doing this, you can wrap that color around the edge a little bit of that sneaker, and you don't have to worry about making or coloring your chalk mark 100%. If you've got the evidence of it still showing a little bit when you get done with this, that's totally fine. We've got lots of steps ahead of us that will help to clean up any of those lines, and sometimes leaving a little bit of that chalk showing during the painting process helps to guide you into, you know, completing your sections as well as you want them to, or to keep your mind kind of straight as to what section is what section. But I'm just going to kind of wrap this around that sole a little bit so we can see kind of the edge of it going on to the other side. And then I'm just taking it and filling in this entire section. And again, because this is just the base coat, it's all right if it's not perfect. If you have little streakiness or if you have imperfections during the process, there's more steps to come, so you don't have to labor over those tiny little nuances at this stage of the game, because we've got lots of stuff that we're going to be doing on top of it. So as I go, I'm doing the same color for my bird. So this is just my light grayish tan color, and again just kind of going right up to the edge of my bird. When I get to the section that is the two colors are meeting, or the two sections are meeting here to here, I will leave myself a little bit of evidence of the separation between the two, so that way again I don't lose my outline, or I don't get confused during the rest of the painting process. So those are just little tips and tricks if you are, you know, using a similar color as a base coat. You don't have to color it all the way. You can leave a little bit of your drawing element in there to help guide you through other parts of the painting. And if you needed to switch to your smaller brush while doing this bird, especially when you get to this little beak part, you can certainly switch your brush to the smaller one if that helps you to maintain control over the detail of the shape of that. And then once you've got this painted in, I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to paint the other sections with just black paint. So washing and drying my brush, and I'm picking up some black paint, and during this process, I know that if I thin out my black a little bit, I will get these nice, clean, crisp edges to it. So I like to use a little bit of water on my brush, especially when I'm using black and I want to have some nice clean lines. I will definitely utilize either water or a liquid medium to thin out that paint so it kind of sinks into the crevices of the canvas, and it gives me these nice crisp clean lines along the edges. And again, not terribly concerned about getting rid of all of my chalk mark. And I also know that I am trying to depict an old pair of sneakers, so if they are kind of wrinkly and maybe the edges are not as, you know, as well formed as a new sneaker would be, that's okay. Maybe these sneakers have taken on the shape of their owner's foot along the way. So if that happens to your sneakers like it happens to mine, mine never look the same, as they always take on like the shape of my foot, which seems to be much different than what the manufacturer had it intended on my shoes to be. So I know that happens to me. So if you're similar to me, then maybe your shoes take on a different shape too. So point being is that you don't have to make your sneakers look exactly the way that I'm making these look. And if yours warp a little bit differently, then that works out fine. We can all have our own shape of sneakers, and maybe we're looking at them at a different angle too. So don't fear that if yours look a little bit different than mine, then that it's incorrect, because it's not necessarily incorrect. It's just we're looking at them at a different angle, or it's a different style of sneaker perhaps. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the canvas part of the sneakers, or the cloth part, whatever you want to represent yours as. So again, I'm just using black paint. I want to make sure that I've got some movement in this part here, so I'm going to follow my chalk, but if there's an area that I want to bump out a little bit more and give it a little bit more movement, I certainly will. I know that, you know, during the detail portion of painting this section of the sneakers, I'm going to be giving it a lot of information as far as like the wrinkles and stuff goes. So these edges, as I'm painting them, I can bump them out and have some good movement to them. Like in through here, I know that's going to be where the heel portion goes, so I would keep that probably a little bit rounder, but the sections where the laces go in through here, or where the ankle has, you know, kind of aged the sneaker over time, you can certainly have some wrinkles to that part too. So this is looking pretty good to me. And again, I'm using a little bit of water in my paint, so if I see a little bit of streakiness as I'm going through the process, I'm okay with that, because again, like I said, we'll be doing a second coat anyways. And then again, I'm going to just go ahead and do this one similarly to how I did the bottom one, which is just kind of getting my edges going, making sure that I keep that movement or that ripple in the line, because that's what's going to make this look a little bit more realistic, having those lumps and bumps in the sneakers to, you know, indicate that they are definitely been worn by somebody over the years, and just kind of slowing down so I can get a nice crisp line as it's meeting the rubber sole part, because that to me would probably be a little bit more crisp of a line than the edges where you see the wrinkles in the cloth. And then just getting this all colored in. And then when I go to do the telephone wires, again, I'm just going to be using black as my base coat. And for me, I will also, similarly to how I did these, I'll be using a little bit of water on my brush, and or you can take droplets of water and just thin out your paint a little bit. Again, this is going to help you to get nice, crisp, clean lines. And when I'm doing a long line like this, I'm just going to kind of go for it. I've got my guide, which is my chalk mark, and I'm just going to kind of ride that along the way. And if I have some chalk mark left over when I'm done, that's okay. Or if my hand goes through one of these chalk marks, which it will, and I have residue of chalk along the edge of my canvas, I can certainly just take that and erase it with some water after the process. So again, not concerned if I don't do this perfect. I can always come back over it and do any corrections that I need to, but right now just kind of following my chalk mark and going all the way down, using a little bit of water on my brush to get this to kind of sink into the crevices of the canvas. And you could use a larger brush if you wanted to. You could use a ruler on these lines, but I find that the pictures I was looking at for telephone wires or wires up in the air, especially when they have something hanging from them, they might not be perfectly straight, but you can, you know, they might have a little bit of warp to them. But once I get this on, what I'll do is I just kind of keep going back and adding little bits to make sure that I have a nice good coverage on them. And then once you've got this step done, we are going to be switching to our small brush for the next step. So you can just kind of keep fiddling with your lines like I'm doing with just a little bit of water and my black paint. Get rid of any little chalk marks that you feel are needed to be gotten rid of, and you can do that just with a little bit of water on your brush. And then you can put this medium brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to do the first layer of our bird feathers and face. I'm going to be using my small brush. The colors I'm using are yellow, black, orange, and that might be it. So what I'm going to first do is I'm going to pick up a little bit of orange on my brush and put my beak in place. So we obviously already have started it in through here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it into the face a little bit. So this is going to give me a little bit larger of an area for the beak. So I'm just bringing it into the face a little bit in through here, and then just kind of bringing it off too. Making sure I go all the way to the tip of that beak in through here. So this way it's going to make it look like we're kind of looking at it from the side. So I just put a little bit more orange on my brush, making sure that I have this far enough in here. I might want to go just a little bit farther in through here just to make sure we've got a good enough size beak. That works. And then I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to put on some black areas. So these birds have a little black section of feathers up on their head. So I'm going to be painting the entire top part of the head with black, bringing it right along the sides of that beak in through here. And then the eye is going to come, I would say, right about in through here. So the eye is going to be black as well to start, but I kind of wanted to show you where the eye was going to go, so you have a barrier as to how far over you put these black feathers on the top of the head. It almost looks like he's got a little kind of crown of sorts on the top. I'm giving a loose kind of sketcherly brush stroke on the edge where I feel that the feathers are going to meet another colored feathers. So if the other feathers on the head are going to be yellow, so wherever I feel that, like in this area, they're going to meet the yellow and the black feathers, I'm giving myself this loose kind of sketcherly edge to the black feathers, so that way there'll be a nice even kind of transition between the two sections of feathers. So something like that, and I just colored my eye black to start. There's another black section of feathers down the wing, so I'm going to come, I would say maybe about an inch down from here, and give myself this uneven type of section in through here. This is going to transition down into these black feathers on the wing. You can separate this wing out, something like this. I'm just giving myself a curved line, and I'll color this whole area in with black paint. I'm even going to pull the little tip of the of this feather or this wing out just a little bit, something like that, just again to give a little bit more of a realistic look to it. Like this little wing is just kind of popping out the side in through there. And there's other markings that we'll be putting on this wing in a little bit, but right now that's it. I'm also going to put a touch of black on the edge of the tail feather in through here. So I've got black on my brush. I'm going to bring this in through here. There's a little edge to blackness in through here, and then they kind of meet somewhere. There's a little underneath kind of section in through there of the black, so something like that. I'm going to wash and dry my brush right now, and I'm going to color the rest of the bird with yellow. So I'm not going to be doing anything fancy here. I'm really just looking to give myself this vibrant yellow base to the bird. My yellow's transparent or translucent, so I can go right up to the edge of those other colors, and you can even overlap them a little bit, so you don't have to worry about over painting this yellow. Just put it in the sections. You don't even need any special brush stroke. If you bump into your sneaker like I just did, don't worry about it. I'm going to put this yellow all the way over in through here, overlapping or touching that black area. And then when I get down underneath this belly area, I'm going to leave a little bit of unpainted area down by that tail, because these birds, I think, have like a lighter area underneath there, more of like a white type of area. So I'm just going to kind of not put my yellow in through there. And that's all I'm going to be doing for my first layer to my bird. We're going to use our medium brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put this small brush away, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish the soles of the sneakers. So this is going to include the bottom portion as well as the edge of the sole in through here. I'm going to be using my medium brush. The colors I'm using are brown, black, my gray, and my white. And what I'm going to do is I'm in essence going to just give you the essence of a little worn and torn bottom of the sneaker, and then we'll give some iconic kind of detail on the sides of these sneakers to make it look like the style that I'm going for. So I'm going to start with the bottoms of them. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up a little bit of brown paint on my brush, and I'm going to rub it into the bottom of that sneaker as if this is the dirt. So consider this to be the dirt, just kind of rub it in, you know, and let it dissipate, have some areas lighter or darker than others. I'm kind of making the bottom side of them a little bit brighter with a little bit more of the brown on it, just so maybe it looks like it's highlighted a little bit. And this one up through here. So again, just using brown on my brush to rub it into the sole of the sneaker, a little bit more brown on my brush. And because my paint is on the transparent or translucent side, it will take on some of that darkness underneath it, which of the black, which allows me to just kind of layer this on if I wanted to make some lighter spots or darker spots. I am picking up a tiny bit of black paint right now just to make sure I have all the areas painted in. I can see that there's a couple of spots that didn't have full coverage, so I just making sure that I've got that taken care of. So now that I've got my dirt on there, what I can do is I can pick up a little bit more brown and maybe a touch of gray on my brush. I'm going to give it like almost the treads on the bottom of the sneaker. Oh, and a touch of water too. So I want this to be a very faint detail, so a little bit of water on my brush will help me to make this be more transparent. And I'm just going to kind of give myself some curved type of lines on the bottom of the sneaker, maybe in through here. Again, I'm just kind of giving the illusion of some, the evidence of a pattern or a tread on the bottom of the sneaker. You could certainly do yours whatever way that you want. Maybe you want yours to be more visible than mine, but again, I'm just picking up a little bit of brown, water, and my gray, and just kind of giving this really loose interpretation of the bottoms of the tread. And so I did kind of like this crisscross motion, and then I can, if I wanted to, I could add these little almost bumps of sorts with just a little kind of pop of the brush to give me a little bit of that look. And if you feel it's too light or too dark, you can always just adjust it. Like I feel like this one in through here is a little bit too in your face, so just put a little bit more black on my brush and just kind of keep adjusting it until it is everything that I had hoped it would be. I think I want this a little bit lighter, so I just picked up a little bit more of my gray and just got this little section. I want the viewer to be able to see that there is that that illusion of dirt on the bottom or of a texture on the bottom. So I just kind of keep playing with it until I get it in that in the way that I want. But if you want to have that little bit of texture to the tread, you can do that kind of crisscross pattern and maybe little pops of bumps here and there. So now that I've got that on there, I'm going to work on this little rubber section. So I'm just going to put a tiny bit of watered down black paint on my brush to start. I'm going to put a little bit of a stripe, black stripe down towards the bottom of it. It's going to stop a little bit shy of the front of the sneaker in through here, so maybe somewhere in through here. So a little bit of watered down black. I'm just using the tip of my brush. You could certainly take out your small brush to do this if you wanted to. So I'll do it there, and then again on here, if this is going to be the top of my sneaker, somewhere maybe about here is where I'm going to stop it. So something like that, and I'm going maybe about 1/4 of an inch away from the edge of the sneaker, something like that. And then I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to put a highlight on this white part of the rubber. So I just put white paint on my brush. I want this white part to be nice and bright, so I'm just putting white on the part of the white part that I feel would stick out the most. So that's going to be this bump in through here, and probably this back section in through here, and then I'm going to just kind of rub it into the rest. But this section of the sneaker actually stops has a little kind of breaking point right in through here. So I want to make sure that I kind of tell the story of that. So I just put that little section in through there, and then I blend out my white into the neighboring gray area. So I have a little bit of the white remnants on my brush, so I can utilize that in through here just to make sure that I have a nice good transition and just kind of rub this out. And you can keep elevating that bright white if you feel that you get it on one layer and it's not bright enough for you. You can certainly add another layer to it. And then I'll do the same thing to this guy up in through here. So I've got this section right in through here that I feel will be nice and bright. Right in through here, just slowing down around my bird. Something like that. I want it really nice and bright in through here. So just making sure I have a good amount of white paint in through there. I'm going to close it off right here because this is where that kind of separating point is, and then just kind of rub out that white paint. And again, you might find, you know, one layer is not good enough for you. You might want a couple of layers, but definitely if you can steer the brightness to that one section of the toe or of the shoe that you feel is popping out the most towards the viewer, that's what's going to make it look more three-dimensional. You know, you want that lightness from the light source, but you also want it kind of popping out to the viewer. So I want this back part to have that same effect. So I've got my white paint on my brush, and I also, you know, want the brightness from the sun above to show that it is, you know, illuminating this part of the shoe. So I've got that brightest part in through there. And then I would just, if I have too much white on my brush, just wipe it off on my paper towel and then just start rubbing this out into the darker areas. So that's going to help to not only give me a little bit of texture in this section in through here, but also help to, you know, transition that color over from the brightness into that middle area. And then I would just kind of keep tweaking it until I felt like I had the dimension that I was looking for and the depth in it that I was looking for. Make any little adjustments. I just picked up a little bit of my gray to make sure that I closed off any gaps that were not fully painted in. And then we're going to use this same brush for the next step. So once you've got the soles of your shoes done, kind of fiddle with it as much as you want. Let it dry. If you need to add more white, and then you can wash and dry this small brush or the medium brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish the top portion of the sneakers. I'm going to be using my medium brush. The colors that I'm going to use are gray and white. And if I need to, actually, I know I'm going to need to, and black also. So gray, white, and black. And so what I'm in essence going to be doing is I'm adding the highlights to the cloth part of the sneaker and also where the little holes for the laces are going to go into, and any decorative stitching that I want to add to it as well. I want this canvas part to remain looking like it's black or of a black canvas, and I just want to add highlights in order to show the form of the canvas. So when I add these highlights, I'm not going to go overly light on them. I'm really just going to look to elevate this black a little bit where I feel it's going to pop out a bit more with the gray and a little bit of black on my brush. And then I'll be putting in where the little lace holes are going to go to. So I'm going to start with a little bit of black and a touch of my gray on my brush. So not a lot of the gray. This is going to help me to establish where I want the areas to pop out. So definitely where the heel is, I feel that that part would pop out, and then I just kind of get it to rub out into the black area of the sneaker. So that again is going to just tell the viewer that this is the part where it's kind of rounded, we're incorporating form into these sneakers. So again, black with a teeny tiny bit of gray on my brush. I feel like we'd have a little bit of this of the top of the sneaker, maybe where it opens up, we'd have a little bit in through here. Maybe we'd have a little bit down. I need a little bit more gray on my brush so we can see it. So a little bit in through here, maybe coming down in through here, is where the wrinkle of the sneaker would be, maybe a little bit coming down in through here, wherever you might have a little bit of a buckle up part in your bumps in through here. So just kind of imagine it to be, you know, a sneaker that's just got cloth for the material, and it's all wrinkled and rippled. So I'm putting the light spots where I feel that they would pop out a little bit more, but I'm not going all the way white yet, because I just really am looking to just kind of get that form in place. And any areas that I feel that I can still see my background, this is now where I would close that up. So I just picked up a little bit of black on my brush, and I'm closing up any areas that I feel need to be finished painted if there's a little bit of a light area or an area that I can see that background. And then once I've got that way about it, I'm going to do that to the next one as well. So black plus a tiny bit of gray on my brush. Again, I've got the heel part back in through here that I know would be popping out a little bit. So gray plus black on my brush, incorporating that highlight in through there. And then I'm going to use that same color combination to tell the story of any other parts that I want to pop out. So gray plus a little bit of black. This is going to be the top portion. Again, just kind of getting it to pop out and rubbing that paint out into the darker black area. I've got maybe the edge of it in through here that I've got. Maybe we've got a little bit of it kind of popping out in through here. I think I need a little bit more black on my brush to make sure that that doesn't go too light on me. I'm going to pop in a little bit lighter of a highlight in a minute, but right now just kind of telling the story of where these areas are bumping out a bit. So gray plus black, maybe there's some wrinkles of sorts in through here. And again, not going too light, so that way I have room to make an even lighter area in a minute. Again, just black plus white. I wanted this to be just a little bit lighter before I moved on. And then I'm going to pick up my black in order to close up any little areas that were unfinished. So a tiny bit of black on my brush. I see that there's an area in through here that I can detect some of that blue behind there. So just making sure that I've got that taken care of. Now I'm going to go in for my bright highlights and my little areas where I want my shoelace holes to be. So I'm picking up gray plus a teeny bit of white. So I washed and dried my brush, and then I'm picking up gray plus a teeny tiny bit of white, and I'm going to put my bright highlights in. So I'm going to have one maybe back in through here. This is going to show the sun is hitting that sneaker in that area. Maybe a little bright one in through here. I've got my shoelaces, or the holes for them. I'm going to just kind of put the evidence of these holes in through here. They don't even have to be perfect. Maybe we're just seeing the sides of them, something like this. I can also do a little bit of stitching if I want to include these little kind of dots down along here. Just kind of wave it like you have the waves of the highlight. So if you have a light area in through here, maybe that stitching goes up. If it's down, or if it's dark, maybe it goes down. So that way you can kind of follow the form that you created in that in the initial highlighting area. And I think I want a little pop brighter into there. And we're going to have laces on this too in a minute. I'm going to do the same thing up top. So white plus gray on my brush. Going to give myself my bright highlight back here, telling the story of the light source. Going to have a nice bright one up in through here. So again, just the gray plus white, maybe a little ripple down in through here, the edge of the sneaker, maybe a little bit in through there. And you know, again, yours does not have to be exactly the same as mine. I'm going to put my my lace holes maybe somewhere in through here. So again, I feel like I would just be kind of seeing them from the side, so I'm not doing too much detail on them. And then I've got maybe some little stitching, and I'm just doing kind of teeny tiny dots for my stitching, but you could certainly, you know, emulate this to be whatever type of sneaker that you want. You can have these in all different kinds of ways depending on what style shoe that you're looking to do, or you can make it up. You can have your own you know, type of shoe all its own. And then I just keep fiddling with it. We're going to use our small brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put the medium brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish the face of our bird. I'm going to be using my small brush. The colors I'm going to use are my sky blue, my cobalt blue, white, orange, and maybe some black. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be kind of finishing the forehead feathers. I'll be doing the little eye and the beak and maybe some little details around it. So I'm going to start with my eye. I'm going to pick up some of my sky blue to create the colored part of the eye. So I don't need to color the whole eye, just a little kind of a sliver or a crescent of the blue paint is what I'm using in through here, leaving myself a little bit of a pupil and a little black area around it. Then I wipe my brush off on my paper towel. I pick up a little bit of white paint and give myself just a little tiny sparkle up in that top left-hand corner. And of course you could play with that as much as you want to. I'm going to put some little feathers around that eye too, so I'm going to pick up a little bit of yellow and white paint on my brush, and I'm going to give myself some pretty little feathers right around that eye, give myself a little bit of life around that eye, and of course this will all work its way into the rest of the feathers as well, but this just kind of gets us started in through here. I'm going to use this same yellow and white as a little bit of a highlight on the top of my beak. So I'm just kind of pulling this down on the top of the beak, wiping my brush off on my paper towel, picking up a little bit of orange to just kind of blend that in with the rest of the beak in through there. I think I want a little bit more white on my brush, so I just picked up a little bit more white, gave myself that nice bright highlight on the top side of that beak. Now what I'm going to do, pick up a little bit more orange, get it to blend in. I'm going to put a little dark line on my beak so it has a place for the bird's mouth to open. So I'm picking up a little bit of watered down black paint, and I'm going to give myself a really faint little line in through here, just kind of really touching the tip of my brush in through here, and then just bringing it down towards that beak in through there. Just a really faint line. You don't need to go full on huge black line in through here. This is just giving the viewer the information that this bird does in fact have a mouth that it can open, and you could certainly fiddle with that as much as you want. I just washed and dried my brush, and I'm picking up cobalt blue to put a shimmering highlight on the top of the feathers on the forehead. So I'm really just kind of tapping my brush on here. This, when it dries, is going to make this little fur or feathers look like they're all nice and shiny. And then I would just pick up a tiny bit of black paint to make sure that these feathers really work well with the neighboring. And then I would just fiddle with it a little bit more. If you feel like you need to do any more highlights or anything on the nose or the eye or anything like that, you can certainly feel free to incorporate any of those little details, maybe a little feather above the eyebrow like that. And then we're going to use the same small brush for the next step, so you can just wash it and dry it and get ready. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish our bird. So this will be the second layer onto the feathers and just making sure that this all has some good dimension. I'm going to be using my small brush. The colors I'm going to use are brown, yellow, white, maybe some black, and maybe some of my gray color. What I'm going to, in essence, do is kind of start with my shadows and work my way to my highlights, which in essence is going to be putting the detail into all of the feathers. So I know that I want this bottom area to be nice and dark, so I'll be using some brown paint underneath here. This is that lighter or whiter area of the tail feather, so I'll be using maybe a little bit of white in through there, but I also need to put like a little shadow underneath here. And then I'll be strategically putting light and dark yellows and whites and browns throughout the rest of here to give it some form. And then there's a couple of little white markings on this wing, so I'll be putting those in place as well. So I'm going to start with a little bit of brown paint on my brush, and I'm going to start way down at the bottom here and almost outlining where the bird meets that sneaker. And this is going to start my nice dark shadowy area at the bottom of the bird. So right now just brown paint on my brush, and then as I move up the bird, I'm kind of just wiggling my brush to blend that brown paint out into the yellow paint. I'm going to pick up a tiny bit more brown paint to give myself a little bit of a shadow underneath this wing in through here, and then I will just kind of bring that down into this lighter section as well. So just a little bit of brown paint kind of underneath this wing in through here, maybe a little bit underneath here. Just think of wherever that animal, where the bottom side of it is, that is not being exposed to the sun, and then you can, that kind of helps you to guide you where those shadowy kind of areas are going to be. I'm going to pick up a tiny bit more brown right now with a little bit of water on my brush. I want to have a tiny bit of a shadowy area underneath this neck as well, but I don't necessarily want it as dark as here. So the white paint, or the water on my brush, excuse me, is going to help me to get that shadow to be a little bit less intense than what I had down here. So that helps, again, add that dimensional element to it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start adding my highlight areas. So this is definitely going to be yellow and white. So I have yellow and white on my brush at the same time. And I'm going to start with using a little bit different of a brush stroke. This is going to give me the illusion of these little feathers on top, or the texture to the feathers. I want it really nice and light as it's going towards the top of the head. So I'm picking up more white paint as I go towards the top of the head. And this is going to really allow the viewer to understand that this is in fact being illuminated by the whatever sunshine is in the sky on this clear day, this clear summer or spring day. And then once I've got kind of my light areas, I'm going to put some more lightness over here on this, the edge of this wing in through here. These feathers are going to kind of overlap into the black ones in through here. Maybe a little bit more of the lightness goes on in through here. Once I've got that on, I can start without washing my brush, just picking up yellow. And this is going to allow me to transition from this light area into the dark area. So without washing my brush, I pick up just yellow, and this helps me because I still have a little bit of the remnants of the white on my brush, and this helps me to incorporate or go gradually into the darkness of the bird. And if this one layer doesn't work for you, you can certainly just kind of keep coming back and adding multiple layers until you've got the dimension on there that you're searching for. And then I'm going to wash and dry my brush and work on this little wing in through here. So wash and dry my brush. I'm picking up a tiny bit of white paint. There's these little edges to the feathers in through here. So I'm just going to kind of wisp in a couple of pointy kind of brush strokes to indicate these are the tips of the feathers. There's a little marking back in through here with a little bit of white, maybe a couple little spots down this feather in through here. I'm going to pick up a little bit more white just to make sure that the edge of this one kind of overlaps with a little bit of the white feathers in through there. That looks pretty good. Maybe a little bit more in through here. And I'm just going for, I want it to look pretty natural. So if I need to do anything more, I certainly would. Maybe a little touch of it on top of this this tail feather in through here. So I just put a tiny bit more white on my brush, just give that a little highlight. And then this underneath part, I'm going to put white plus gray on my brush just to, so it's not so bright white. This is meant to look like kind of white feathers underneath here, but I don't necessarily want it as white as the white up here because I want it to appear as if it's underneath the bird. So using white plus the gray is going to give me that dimensional element of it being a little bit, more in the shadows than the white up top. And then I would just, let it dry, step back from it, see if I need to do any more fiddling. Like I feel like I want this to be a little lighter, so I put a little bit more white on my brush, And then we are going to be using our medium brush for the next step. So you can, once you've got your beautiful bird done here, you can put your small brush away, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish our telephone lines and we're going to put our laces into place. So I'm going to be using my medium brush. The colors I'm using are gray, black, and white. What I'm going to first do is I'm going to do a highlight on my telephone wires. So this step, you just kind of want to make sure that you will keep whatever one in front that you want to have in front. So for me, I want this top one is going to be the one that's in front. That's going to be the one that is connecting these guys in through here. So I'm going to do my front one first, and then I'll work my way to the back one because they get a little tangled in through here. So what I did was I put black and gray paint on my brush at the same time, and I'm just going to kind of do a quick swipe on the top side of that particular line. So I have black plus gray and a little bit of water as usual on my brush. This is also a great step to clean up your lines. So if you have any wonkiness to them, now's the time where you can kind of play with that a little bit. So I just kind of keep picking up gray plus black. So that's going to be my top one. The next one in the row is going to be this one coming here. So when I do this, I just have to kind of skip over. And if you accidentally bump into the other line, it's okay. You can always come back and just correct it with a little bit of black paint or whatever you need to do in order to correct it on your end. And then just kind of black. I have black and gray plus water on my brush right now and just going down. And I'm not concerned about my highlight being exactly the same intensity from one area of the line to the next. I'm okay with it being brighter in some areas and duller in other areas. I'm going to put a little white highlight in a second, but right now I'm still going with black and gray on my brush, and then this one's going to be my back one. So just again, starting on the top side of it, I'm going to stop it when it hits this one here, and then I restart it over in through here. So that way you have that element of one being in front of the other, which is a really cool kind of dimensional element to have. And then just bring this all the way to the end. I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of white paint on my dirty brush and kind of scoot in now a couple of real bright highlights just along the along each one. Again, you don't have to even do a full solid line. I'm just really kind of adding that extra bit of sunshine sparkle on them. And again, it doesn't have to be a full line, just a partial one will work. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to put my base coat to my shoelaces on. So just wash and dry my brush. I put gray paint on. You could certainly pencil this out if you want to, but the main goal here is just to have it, gravity is going to take over with these sneakers. So they have to kind of be almost straight in order to make sense. So what you want to do is kind of find the middle point of where these two areas, like if you were to just kind of come straight up from here and find the middle point of these two and then go straight up from that, that's where you want the tippy top of the lace to be. So that way it makes sense that, you know, mine are going to be a little twisted, and then they would kind of split and just hang to that sneaker itself. So somewhere in through there is going to work for me. I'm going to have mine kind of hanging over this right side, and it'll be under the other side, but I'm going to have this one kind of going straight to this sneaker in through here. So I'm just going to kind of take this and pull it straight down, well, at a little bit of an angle for this one in through here, like that. And then I'm going to take from, I would say maybe right about, well, I'm going to go underneath there, but from here, this will just give you, we'll twist it in a second, but from here, I'm going to keep my eye on my prize, which is going to be down here. This is where I want this line to kind of come out. So it's going to come out a little bit at an angle and kind of shoot past here a little bit and then come down. So I've got this kind of coming out, shoot past this sneaker in through here. And if it's not perfect, it's not perfect. You don't have to go for perfection on stuff like this, but if you can kind of keep things a little bit on the believable side and just kind of travel down here and in through here works, and then just kind of bring it down in through here. So I've got that taken care of. I need to kind of figure out the twist a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I've got this side coming out from here, and it is going to, let's see, I'm going to have it twisting over this one and then maybe under this one, and then it's going to be to there, and then this one is going to twist under like this. So I just kind of, in essence, kind of put a couple of little extra bumps, and I'll show you how I'm going to make those look realistic in a minute. But while that is kind of setting or settling, I'm going to go and put my laces on the fronts of the shoes. So this is just going to be a whole bunch of fun little bumps of sorts, but I'm going to put a little loose piece of the tie coming out in through here. I'll put a little loose piece of the tie kind of coming out in through here, and then I'll put just a carefree kind of bumps that are going to come out of my my holes that we made earlier. So I've got maybe one there and one there, and maybe this one kind of comes back in through here, and maybe this one comes back in through here. And of course you can make yours whatever way that you want as well. So now here I've got maybe this one kind of loops into that one. Maybe I've got a loop over there and a loop over here. Maybe this one kind of goes a loop in the opposite direction and opposite direction, you know, just kind of go with wherever those holes are. You can really have fun with them. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put little highlights and stuff on. So I didn't wash my brush. I just picked up a little bit of white. I feel like these the holes need a little bit of highlight too, so I picked up a little bit of white. I'm just kind of going and putting a tiny bit of a highlight on those with a little bit of white paint on my brush. Just a little quick swipe works for that. I'm going to do the same thing for the laces themselves. So I don't want to cover up all the gray. I'm just kind of adding a tiny little highlight to make it look like it's catching a little bit of the sun or something, has a little bit of dimension in it. So again, just a tiny bit of white on my brush, giving myself a little highlight on these laces. This one I'm going to put maybe in through here. I'm going to do the same thing for this long lace in through here. I'm going to put my highlight on first, and then I'm going to put some strategic shadows. So I've got a little highlight coming up over this top part in through here. Then I'm going to do a highlight on this piece like that, and I'm going to do a highlight on this piece coming out the side like that. And of course you can, you know, fiddle with this as much as you want. I've got a little highlight there, a little highlight down here. I need to clean up that little piece of black in a second. So those will be my highlights. I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm putting a tiny bit of black and gray on my brush right now to put a couple of shadows up in through here. So I'm really just going to, oops, I just put white paint over there. I had it on my hand. I'm really just going to put a tiny bit of a shadow in between these laces where they meet. So a little tiny bit in through here, little tiny bit in through here. This is going to make it look like it's twisting on us, or on up in the wire of sorts. And then you can just kind of fiddle with it if you feel that it needs a little bit more finessing. I'm going to pick up some of my gray just to clean it up a little bit, and then you can just make any little adjustments that you want. I would recommend kind of sitting back, letting it dry for a minute, and then seeing if there's any adjustments that you want to do. And then we have one little step left to go, and it's going to be with our small brush. So you can put your medium brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so we are on to the final step. This is the final step of every painting, which is to sign it. So I typically sign mine in the bottom left or the bottom right. I'm going to be using my small brush. I'm going to sign mine in the bottom left with white paint. You could, of course, sign yours with whatever color you want. I do my initials, and you could certainly do your first name or the date or a symbol, or sign it however you want to identify yourself as. It's your painting. You get to do whatever you'd like for your signature. And that's going to conclude this painting. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you painted yourself a very cool summer image, and I look forward to painting and sipping with you again sometime.